I want to know if there's any one of us here that's heard about software testing, or you know anything about software testing. Can you share like your basic knowledge on software testing before we get into today's class? Please feel free to unmute and talk, cause I cannot see the. I can't see who's raising his hands up. Hi, can anyone hear me? Okay,
Yes.
yeah, you can. Victor, I think Victor's hand is up. Can you?
Good evening. Can you hear me? Good evening,
Yeah, I
everyone.
can. Good evening, Victor.
So my basic understanding of software testing is testing a software to make sure it performs as expected and it meets the requirements of the software.
Okay, that's a good one. That's a good one. Any other person wants to try? Okay, I think I think your hands are raised. You can.
Good evening. Software testing is simply when a software is built or an application is built. There are people that will check it if it meets, users can use it. If there are bugs, if there are things that if it's user friendly, and if it meets the expectation of the market.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. That's actually a very simple and straight to the point definition. So I'm guessing most of us here have like an idea about software testing. Please sorry about my voice. I've been under the weather. But I'll try to give you my best this evening. So for today, we'll just be doing the basic and like it's going to be like an intro class about software testing, nothing too serious, just straight to the point. And I'm hoping that by the end of the class, you're able to have like at least foundation level understanding on software testing, preparing for your next class. So from our slide here, we have software testing is the process of evaluating and verifying that a software application or system meets the specified requirements, just like Victor and Adrian had said earlier. It involves executing a program or application with the intent of finding software bugs. Testing ensures that the software works correctly and meets the business and technical requirements. So we're trying to check that, okay, is this application user-friendly? Sometimes it might be user friendly, but at the same time, it doesn't exactly meet what business wants. It's user friendly, but then it's not what the business wants. So why are you building that? So we're also checking: is it what the business wants? Is it what is required? And then is it also what can the people this application is built for use it? And also the bugs. That's why we have like you're checking for functionalities, you're checking the UI to see if the button is placed correctly, if it is visible for you to see, and when I click on this button, does it work? When I click on this, does it give me the response that is expected? And is it actually placed where it's supposed to be? So that's like an overall knowledge on intro to software. So you're evaluating softwares and identifying issues, discrepancies between expected and actual outcomes while you're assessing the software. So we'll go into importance of software testing. I don't know if any of us have heard of ZAP. Zap that was recently launched by Paystack. I think I'm going to leave this mini screen on so I can see who has this or hands raised. But please, can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
hear you.
Okay, please. If at any point you can't hear me, please just let me know. I would try to be audible. I think I want someone. Okay, Beniza, I want some other person. Yeah, Beniza, please tell us about that. I don't know. Did you hear about how long the time frame it took for them to actually test before bringing the product out?
Hi everyone, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Hey, Beniza.
All right, so I heard it took over a year, about a year and 6 months, almost 2 years for the testing period. And
Okay.
Zap helps you with your bank transfers, helps connect your different local accounts together to enable you transfer to another beneficiary or something like that.
Perfect. Do you have like an idea why you think it took them that long to test? It doesn't need to
All
be
right,
like a
so
perfect answer, just from your own point of view.
okay, first of all, I would say to ensure that they are rolling out the best quality of the product. And secondly, to ensure that what the product is meant to, the service is meant to provide, it's actually providing those services. Just to ensure that everything that they want out of the app, it's is effective. Yeah.
Thank you, Ebenezer. So basically, it took them that long, obviously, because they want to ensure quality is out. You don't want a situation where a client is trying to send 1,000 and or trying to send 1,000 and the other person is receiving a million naira. We don't want, they obviously do not want those type of issues and errors. So it's always important that you give enough time to testing so you know that what is going out there is quality. Please, can we mute our mics, please?
Why are you gonna do me like this?
You want to be sure that what is going out there is quality and from our list here of importance of testing, there are a lot of important reasons why testing is important. But I've picked this four to talk about today. So quality assurance, like we had talked about when I raised Zap. We want to ensure quality is what your client is getting. The product that is going out there, it's quality. If I get on an application today and it stresses me out, the possibility or tendency of me going back to that app is really low. I might not go back because I don't like stress. And I'm sure a lot of us are like that, where if you're getting on an app and it's buggy, you're clicking on this, it's not working, it's slow, you might not get on there, you might not go back there. But if you get on an application, and I think one of the reasons why we all use some social media platforms like TikTok and the rest because it's quite seamless. Like everything is going on smoothly, and that's why I would always, when we're bored, want to go back on there to like scroll through. But trust me, if the application isn't responding as it should, you will not want to get back on that app because you feel it's wasting your time consuming, it's stressful, and a lot of us don't like that, right? So you want to ensure quality so you can exactly get like you can get proper feedback and you can get the actual results as to why that product is out there. So you're trying to ensure quality and bug detection, identify and fixes defects or bugs in software in the early in the development process. So you're identifying bugs while it is still in development phase. Nobody wants to start finding out that a button is not clicking when that product has already gone live. We should be able to find out that a particular button isn't clickable. I'm using these simple terms so you can understand well. I'm sure like in the progression of your classes you will get to understand more the past things, but I'm just going to use examples as simple as the buttons and soft clickable stuff so you would understand since it's your first class. But I want to ensure that when I click on login, it actually logs me in. It doesn't close the app doesn't crash, or it's taking me to the home page. It's not taking me to the settings page when I click on login. So you're trying to check all of those things. I don't want to have to send this out to my users and then they are the ones coming to report the issues to me and all of that. So this is not working, that isn't working. So that is why it is important that every application is tested before it is sent out to your users or to business. Also, for user satisfaction, enhances user experience by delivering a stable and error-free application. I think I said it before that nobody wants to use an application that is really bulky. I think there was the payments application. I can't remember which of them that my friend opened, a fellow software tester like me, but she had it as for her personal use. And she opened it in front of me, and I'm just like, please, what for application is this? It was just a whole lot going on, and just looking at it stressed me out. Like, to me, that application wasn't user friendly. I feel it could have had a whole lot of functionalities and features, but the UI, it wasn't okay. I feel they could have done better because when you're working on applications, knowing that it is for people to use, you should try to have them in mind like, okay, this should be user friendly. If a user gets on this app, they should be able to use it without having to attend classes to learn how to use it. They should be able to navigate through without being taught how to. So that's when an application is user friendly. So you want to be sure that when a new user gets on this app, they're able to navigate through seamlessly without having issues. So we as testers always try to um do things from the user point of view while also having the business requirements in mind as well. And also cost saving highlights what's new, unusual, and surprising. Another thing I'll say about this cost saving is in the past I've seen different businesses have to pay like really, really ridiculous amounts to cover up all the issues. Like, you know how you probably want to, I think it has happened where there are double debits. I'm going to use the finance part of business as example, like our banking apps where there are times where you're doing like a transaction. Okay, recently there was a story I heard where a particular system, I think it was one of these government systems, but I'm not sure it's out there. But my company, got the gist from one of the developers where they were trying to pay their staff, and everybody got credited twice. It was just what cost it. I heard it was just a small, minor network issue that caused that double credit. But the good thing is that since it was their staff, they were able to like reimburse the company back and all of that. So all of this can be avoided because what if it was like different bodies having to claim the money back and all would have been a big issue. So all of these little things can be avoided when you can just pay your testers to get proper tests done with enough time, can avoid having to lose a lot of money and all of that. So this is like the little I was able to bring up about importance of software testing. But overall, software testing is important when you're building an application or when you're trying to push an application out there for your users. I would proceed to okay, so in software testing, we have manual and automation testing. I'm sure you get like deep insights on it in the course of this class, but I'm basically just giving you like an introduction, basically. So when you're getting into the deep part of things, you would understand better. So when we're talking about so far, before I proceed, do we have any questions on software testing and importance of software testing? Victor, you still have your hand raised. Can you drop it if you don't have any questions so I don't confuse? Okay, thank you. So I'm sure nobody has questions. So I'll proceed to manual testing. So what I have here, manual testing involves evaluating software by human testers without automated tools, relying on their intuition and application understanding. Exploratory testing falls under this category. And we have the advantages, in-depth advanced testing, and then disadvantage obviously is it is time consuming because we have to do it manually. So when we're talking about manual testing, we are the ones doing it without using automation tools, and we're relying on our intuitions and our understanding. So when we're talking about manual testing, you're having to click on a particular button to see if it works. You're manually imputing to see if maybe I'm going to use like a login page as an example. So when you're trying to log in, you have the email and the password field. So now I have to now manually test to see if I can pass in, if my password field requires like strong password, if it has a certain character limit, if I can only input numbers, if it allows me input characters and all of that. I also want to see, can I log in with only inputting email address without putting in my password? Funny story, it might actually work, which is actually a bug that should be reported and fixed. You'll be surprised that you put in your email address without putting in a password and you're able to log in. So that's where manual testing comes in, where you have to manually try to check all of these things to see, okay, when I click on my login button, what happens? Does it take me to the home page? Does the system crash? I know I was testing a mobile application one time and I was clicking on a particular feature on the app and the app kept crashing. So that is where manual testing comes in, and it's important because you're trying to, you're getting a feel of what you're doing, and not just that, aside that, you're trying to see, okay, is the login button, is it white when my background color is white and it's white? So is it easy for a user to even see that this is the login button, or is it easy for them to tell that, okay, I'm on a sign-in page, can I prove this is what's next, putting my email password? And you'll be surprised that some applications are so complicated that you cannot even find the sign-in page on their landing page. So you have to see, like, is this application actually user friendly? Does it work as expected? So this is where manual testing comes in. Just like I have here as the disadvantage, it can be really time consuming because you have to manually do all of these tests and also report. And while you're reporting, you're not just reporting, you're checking to see, is it what the business requires, and also is it user friendly as well. For me, when I'm working, I like to work hand in hand with the business team and the design team. I'd like to relate with the design team to know, guys, is this what you want from your Figma design, and business is what is on your document. But basically, that's like an overall view on what manual testing is about. And on the other hand, talking about automation test, automation testing uses specialized tools to execute prescripted tests, ensuring consistency and speed. Popular tools include Selenium. How many of us have heard of Selenium, Cypress, Playwright? Is there anyone yet that's heard about those testing tools? Okay, so I just take it as a no, but I'm so sure in the course of this class you will get to at least see how to use one of these tools to test. Popular tools include Selenium, JUnit, TestNG, Cypress, there's Playwright, there's quite a number of them. Automating regression tests can significantly reduce execution time from days to hours, illustrating the cost benefits. And we have here the advantage, fast and efficient, and then require setup. So For me, I'd say if you want to learn automation, you need to know a bit of coding. But on the other hand, when it comes to manual, you don't really need to know anything about code base and stuff. Because I think Cypress, you need to know JavaScript and all. You have to write scripts like it's like you're passing commands to the system to run the tests for you. But genuinely, if you ask me, I would pick manual tests way over automation. Automation is good, but in some cases, it is just way better that you get because it's humans. You have humans using this application, so it's just better you do your test and then maybe at the end of it, you can then bring in automation to like check like other things. But in all of this, manual test I feel is important. So automation involves script writing and sending commands to the system to run your tests for you. And yes, it is fast, unlike the manual part of things where you have to manually run the tests yourself. But as you're starting out, you have to start as a manual tester before you move into progressing to automation testing. And we have software development life cycle. Before I proceed to software development life cycle, do we have any questions or can I proceed, please? Okay, Dominion. Dominion, yeah. Please shoot. You're muted and your hand raised. You can ask your question.
Oh, sorry. My name is
Okay.
Ubong Obasi Bebe. My name is Ubong Obasi Bebe.
Okay.
Yes. So I want to ask, uh, what if we want to use the two, like the automation and the manual?
Yeah, sure. You can.
Okay.
Yeah, you can. You're very free to
Okay.
use this tool. But
So what is
for me,
the
I think
okay?
okay. No, you had a
Yeah,
question to say.
I wanted to ask also the learning curve for the automation. How is it? Is it something a beginner can learn so easily?
Um, learn so easily. It depends on how fast of a learner you are. It depends on how fast of a learner you are, but if you ask me between manual and automation, it is easier to learn manual better. And I would always advise anybody starting out to do manual, get really good at it. Maybe not really good, but have a proper understanding before then moving into automation. If you understand my point. So have a proper understanding of manual because um it is just better to know manual better. Then you can now switch using your knowledge from manual testing. You can then get into automation testing. Do you understand? But manual is way easier to learn than automation. But it depends on how fast of a learner you are. If you put in the work, sure you can learn, but you understand better if you have like a good understanding about manual tests before going into automation. And manual is really good and faster to learn, easy to learn. Did you get that?
Yes, I do. I do
Okay.
get it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Beyonce, can I proceed? Hi, you're welcome. Can I proceed, Beyonce? You said I should go back to automation testing slide.
Excuse me, I have a question. I don't know if you can see our hands.
Okay, yeah, sure. Shoot. No problem.
Right. So I'm just curious, right? Are there scenarios where you carry out manual testing on a product and then you miss out on bugs that you find when you carry out automated testing? And if yes, what's the implication of catching a particular bug or a certain bug with automated testing that you missed out when you use manual testing?
Implications? There are no implications, if you ask me. Just find the bug. And another thing I would like to put out there is a particular application cannot be 100% bug free. It cannot be 100% bug free. So, but what we try to do is to ensure that we are able to narrow it down to the smallest, so we know that whatever bug that you're finding out later is not something that will cost us millions of naira, or it's not something that will cost the company or anything. But that's not an excuse. But a particular application cannot be 100% bug free, and it's still a good thing if you're able to if you miss a bug when you're doing your manual testing and you find it during automation. That's good. But so many companies don't really do automation. So many companies focus on manual tests. So many companies, but so that's why for me I feel like if you do manual tests, I think you're good because you're doing automation that has to do with performance tests, your stress testing, load tests, and all of that. But when it comes to core functionalities and things like the UI, manual test comes in. So both of them are great in their own way. And yeah, I don't know if I've been able to answer your question.
Yes, you have. Thanks.
Okay. Any other question before I proceed? Okay, Victor, you can shoot.
Yeah, good evening. So I have two
Hi,
questions.
Victor.
Yeah.
Okay.
The first one, like, are there steps required in manual testing? That's the first question. And the second question is that, like, when you detect bugs in a software, can it cause the failure of that software? Thank
I
you.
didn't get your first question.
Yeah, the first
What's
question
the
I said, what
first
are the
one?
are there steps involved in conducting manual testing? That's the first question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there steps involved in conducting manual tests?
Yes.
Testing generally there are steps involved. First you have to understand what you're working on or what the product is about. You have to understand that because you cannot just give me an application and tell me to just test. What am I testing for? So you have to fully understand, and for you to fully understand the application, you have to go through the FRD, the business what the business requires. There's a documentation every application would have, or if it's a particular feature you're working on, there's always a document that states what that particular application is going to do, each features. You'd see as a user, when I log in, I should be able to see my home page, and when I go to settings, you're going to see all that breakdown. You're going to fully understand that. So that will give you like a proper understanding. And then for some structured companies or teams, you'd also have like a Figma design. So you're able to see even before the product is built or the application is built, there's always that Figma design that would help the developer and you to have like a picture of what that application would look like. So after all of that, you're now going to have to generate your test cases. I'm sure in the course of this class, before the end of this whole training, you're going to understand how to generate your test cases. So you're going to build your test cases. Test cases are like let's say like for me, I'll call them like a manual or a guide to help me with what I want to test. You cannot have everything all in your head. So I like to build my test cases before I start to test. So I might say that I want to test the login page. So in my head, I know that, okay, I want to check that the login button is clickable. I want to check that I'm able to input in the email field, in the password field. All of that is in my head. But when you put it down, while you're writing, you're able to think of other scenarios that you're able to pen down, and then while you start testing, you're going through that test cases and you're testing according to what you wrote on your test cases. So it's like a manual. So from your test cases, you're then able to test, but you're not exactly limited because you wrote 5 scenarios on your test case. It doesn't mean you're only going to test out 5 scenarios. As you go along the way, there are times where I might have like 100 list on my test cases and I've tested more than 200 scenarios. So it's just like a guide. So first off, you have to properly understand what you're testing, what you're going to be testing, and then understand what is expected, what they want. They want you to. You might have a banking platform now. They'll tell you, okay, I don't want to save beneficiary on it. I only want to be able to transfer money. I don't want to be able to save account number. But every other bank application saves beneficiary rights. But that is what the business requires. And you have to ensure that what is being worked on at the end of the day works to what the business wants. And it is also user friendly. So you have to understand before you're able to test, you're able to proceed to testing. And then the test cases, like I said, is your guide to tests. So you have to, but in the course of the class, you understand everything about test cases. And if there's time, I can show you like what I wanted to show you what a basic test case is like, but I think the facilitator in charge of that would show you that. But I hope I was able to answer that question.
Yes, thank you. So
Okay.
the other question, can I
The
go?
second question, yeah. Sorry.
Yes, yeah, you were like it's not possible for us to like confirm or see all the bugs in the software during testing. So I want to ask that, okay, is it that uh we not being able to detect a bug will it affect, or is it possible for it to affect the final output of the software of the software being developed? Like, will it function, or I, I don't know whether you understand my question. Whether it functions if a bug is not detected.
Okay, so if you remember when I said bugs are not an application cannot be defect free, but we try to ensure that those core things, not just core, but we try to ensure we don't. I will not be testing an application and say, after all, an application cannot be 100% bug free, and I'll just be careless about it. I'm going to work on the application with the mindset that this thing has to be 100% bug free. Even though somewhere I know that it is almost impossible, but doesn't mean you cannot try your best. So, because an application cannot be 100% bug free, is not an excuse for you not to check. Because if anything solves in the end, at the end of the day, it's going to be on you or your company. So, but I'm very sure that if there are issues that that might be that might implicate you or whatever, I'm sure you'll find it while you're testing if you're diligently testing. So because I said, maybe I shouldn't have said it, but because I said it doesn't mean we should have it. We should know, always just test and say, after all, cannot be 100% bug free. So when you test, like, it has to be 100% bug free, and that way I'm sure you'll be able to find whatever issues it is. Yeah, I don't like to let my clients find them, so I try to find the issues before anybody does. But yeah, we're humans, so anything is possible at the end of the day. So I'll proceed now, but I think I'll be taking the questions after the class just to save time. So we can just note our questions down and I'll ask after the class. Okay, so moving on, we have the software development life cycle. So when we're talking about software development life cycle, just as the whole the word implies, software development life cycle. What happens in the process of building a software? We have requirement that gathering, that's collecting and analyzing project needs. We have the design phase, requirement gathering. This can be done by the business analyst, the business team. We have the design, the design phase, which is done by obviously the product designer, also known as the UI UX team. We have the implementation, that's the coding the software, the back end, the front end developers. And also we have the testing phase, which is the part where we software testers come in to check that everything is okay before it is being launched out. So this is the basic list of what the SDLC looks like. You're gathering information about what you want to build, you're designing it, implementing, and then you're testing. And then navigating testing phases in software development lifecycle. So what I'll be going over, we have unit testing, integration, system testing, acceptance testing. They're basically like types of software testing. So I've picked four to talk about, and I'll just break them down. So first off is the unit testing. So unit testing is all about testing individual components or modules in isolation. So you're testing the codes, you're like testing codes before even testing the UI. So just like it is your code quality, error detection, and ensuring high quality and maintainable code through rigorous testing. You're testing individual components. So in some companies that I have worked with, most times unit test is done by the developers, and then sometimes they push it to the testers to do. But basically, you're testing each line of code to ensure there are no bugs in it before even pushing it to the front end guys. So you're identifying and fixing defects early in the development phase before even pushing it out there. So we also have the integration test. So this focuses on evaluating the interaction between different software modules or components. It ensures that the integrated components work seamlessly together, identifying any interface defects or communication issues. This type of testing is crucial for verifying the proper functioning of interconnected software system and the effectiveness of data flow between them. So this somehow combines your groups of combines testing groups of unit codes together, and then you're verifying the interaction. So I don't know, when you're doing integration tests, it's mostly concerns API tests. When you're testing APIs, sometimes there are applications that require you using a particular API and stuff to test to merge with that application. So you have to test that, okay, if I'm going to bring this API and stuff, is it going to affect, is it giving me back the response as expected and all. So you're testing that okay, this if I'm bringing this API in, is it messing things up for me? Is it working as it should? But before I even talk about APIs, does anybody know what an API is?
Application programming interface.
Okay. Aside that, do you know any other thing? Do you want to explain better? Okay, Victor, please. I can hear you, Victor. Yeah, I can. Yeah. Yes, Yes, I can. I'm trying. Nah, I cannot hear you, Victor. Maybe Charles can go. I can't hear you, Victor.
Okay, can I say something?
Okay,
Can
you
you hear me?
can then. Charles can go. Yeah, sure, I can.
Okay, so what I believe API is, there are additional, applications we add to our software to carry out some functions. Like, let's take for example the payment, functions in the software to carry out
Mm-hmm.
payments, using our cards and
Yeah.
other this thing. So that is an API that is being added to the software to perform a task.
Okay, that's a very good one. Okay, Charles can go. Victor, I don't know if you're in a good environment or you're not please. But Charles can go, and then Victor.
Hello, can you hear
Yeah,
me?
you can hear.
Yes, Charles, I can hear you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I
Okay, good evening.
can.
An
Hi, good
API helps,
evening.
developers to actually bridge the gap between our front end and our back end. Let's say, for example, you're a front end developer. Maybe you're working with maybe React, or you're working with a particular programming language. You want to actually interact with, a back end, maybe your database, maybe your queries and the rest of it. Now, an API actually helps, the back end developer to actually fetch that information and then have it displayed from the front end. API also helps us a lot because it enables us not to continue to create the same block of code over and over again. Take for example something like Paystack. So let's take for example now you built an e-commerce store, but you want to use Paystack. So as a developer, because you're not working with Paystack as a staff or as a developer, you can't really replicate exactly what they've built. But with an API, the particular company or the particular organization has already built that block of code and they've made it an open
Yeah.
source. So all you need to do is to get your parameters, and then with your parameters, you can actually integrate that particular API without having to code it from scratch. So if you're actually working as a front-end developer, what API does for you is to enable you display what your database and whatever information you're having on your back end. And as a back end developer, API helps you not to go ahead and start recoding and rebuilding an application that has already been built. It just gives you like a key, just like entering a house. So it just gives you a key, and then with the key, you can have access to whatever is behind the scene. I don't know if that explains it.
Yeah. Okay, Charles has even said everything I wanted to say. But yeah, that's a good one, Charles. That's a good one. Someone said I don't know if it's a she or he. I wanted to check the message that she or she's new here. Okay, let me see that message. Oh, Gloria, I'm so sorry. No, 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 no. At the end of the class, don't worry. I'm still going to get where you're coming from, what you do not understand, so that would break that down. Because this is the class you're supposed to start before. But don't worry, all these things you're saying, you're going to get it very soon. It's nothing that is not so deep. Don't worry. So let me try to break that API part down. But Charles, thank you so much for that. I don't know if anybody wants to say something else before everyone, please can you mute? Okay. Okay, let me use this. I'm sure we all use child deck. We all use child deck, right? To get food or food court. So you notice when it's time for payment, it redirects you to a payment gateway. I think now what they use mostly is Paystack. It's either you're using Paystack or Flutterwave, and that particular page gives you the option of card, basically that payments platform. If you check it, it is not exactly a product of Childec, but they are using PayTax API to get that payment platform for you. I don't know if that's how I'm able to like break it down in the simplest terms. So it's like a middleman basically. So now why I talked about this whole API thingy is to bring it down to this integration testing. So I'm checking, let's say I'm working on an application that requires that particular feature. I have to check that, okay, if I'm using this particular payment gateway, does it work? If it's been merged with this application, does it work as it is expected? Am I able to make seamless payment? Are my customers able to pay using the card feature, the transfer feature, and all of that as it is expected? Because it is like an external body being brought in. And just like Charles had said, you're not building this from scratch. You're bringing in something that's already been built just to make life easy for everybody. So you're trying to see that nothing is breaking while this whole integration process happens. So you're testing all of that. I don't know if that was simple enough for you guys to understand. Okay, thank you. Gloria, you're going to be my charity student. So I'm going to ask leave like 10 minutes for you to ask so many questions after this class. So please note down your questions. So okay. So let's proceed to system testing. So talking about system testing ensures that the system meets specified requirements and performs as expected. Security testing, which is also under system testing, identifies vulnerabilities and ensures that the system is secure from unauthorized access. So this security testing would have to do with both manual and automation tests. For most companies, like I had said earlier, use manual tests most of the time. So there are still ways you can do your security tests using manual tests, but you can as well just use it using automation tests as well. And then compatibility testing, you're checking if the system is compatible with various, it's all under system test. You're checking if the system is compatible with various hardware, operating systems, and environments. You know, there are some applications that you'd open on your Chrome browser and it will not open on Safari. I've had experiences where I'm able to open a particular website on Firefox, but it's not opening on every other device too. Or just like we have some applications that would open on your Android device and not open on iOS because they are not compatible. It doesn't mean it's a bug, but maybe it wasn't built for iOS, it was just built for Android. But there are times where business requires that this particular website or this particular application should be able to, users should be able to open it on all browsing platforms, or they'll specify, okay, should be able to open on Safari, should be able to open on Google Chrome. And that is now how it will help with your testing. You're going to check, okay, business said it should be able to open on Safari and Google Chrome, then I should not only be able to open on Google Chrome, it should also open on Safari. So you have to check. And if it doesn't open, there are times where it opens, but then it starts to glitch, it starts to hang and all of that. So you don't just open it and say, okay, it's opening. You also have to do like a quick run through a regression test as well. There are times where not just a quick run through, but like a proper test, because there are times where everything will work well and maybe you're probably unable to upload image on this particular browser, but you're able to do everything perfectly on a different browser. So there are stuff like that. So you have to check for compatibility tests as well when you're testing. So you're just ensuring that the entire system functionality, performance, end-to-end, and web application works on the environment that it is meant for. So aside compatibility test, you're just checking everything. This whole application, does it work the way the business people said it should work, or the way it is on FRD, is that how it is working, or the way it is on the Figma design, is that what it looks like? Because sometimes too, I used to have a problem with a developer where the laptop that was given to me at work, it was a different had a different screen, so everything would look good on his screen. And when I open the website on my own screen, I'm not seeing some buttons, or some things are compressed and all of that. So you have to check responsiveness, you have to check, does it fit? It might be opening properly on a particular browser and then or a particular system, because I noticed when I use my own personal system to open that web application, it worked. When I use the system laptop, I did not understand what I was saying. So those are things you have to check, because you cannot really tell if your users are going to use a particular laptop or a particular device or something to work with. So you have to always ensure, because obviously we cannot test all around. I like to use mobile simulator most times. It depends on the application I'm working on, but I have some extensions too that I use when I don't have access to real life devices. But it's always advisable that you try it on real life devices. But yeah, basically end-to-end tests, checking the whole system and checking if it's compatible, and also acceptance tests, which is the last on our list. Formal testing conducted to determine whether or not a system satisfies the acceptance criteria, and to enable the customer to determine whether or not to accept the system. It is usually performed by customers. So this part is what we call UAT, user acceptance test. So this test happens after we are done testing, the testers are done testing, and then sometimes it is not just with customers, because sometimes I handle the UAT where I share my screen and then I run through the application while the owners of either the product manager, project manager, or business product owner is on the call to see, and then before they then push it to the actual owners of the um of the application. So they also have to have a feel of it. They have to see that, okay, is everything working as expected? Am I satisfied? Do I want to make any changes? There are some changes you cannot make last minute, but they want to see if they are okay with it. Is this what I asked for? Is this what you gave me? Is it working as expected? And God help you that your login button doesn't click when they click on it, but that should not happen. So basically, acceptance test is done by them. It's usually like the last. You're validating the software and you're ensuring it meets the requirements by stakeholders, and you're ensuring the system is ready for production. So it's always the last part, because after this, if everything is accepted by the stakeholders, the product owners, then you can push to production. So this is always like the last thing that happens. Before pushing further. Most time, okay. I'm going to read this through and then I'm going to explain so you'd understand. When we're talking about agile, so okay, waterfall model is a sequential linear approach with well-defined requirements and minimal changes. It emphasizes detailed documentation and planning. An example of the waterfall model is government infrastructure projects. While we have the agile, agile is an iterative, incremental approach with continuous feedback, ideal for projects with evolving requirements and frequent changes. It emphasizes collaboration, flexibility, and customer involvement, utilizing frameworks like. So when we're talking about agile. Sometimes when you're talking about agile development, your the work is divided into small bits. So you're having like sprints where you have like a full application, and we're going to work in bits. So let's say we're working with sprint. So like in 2 weeks, we want to work on the login page. So in that 2 weeks, we're going to build it and we're going to test. And while you're testing, and giving feedbacks, another feature as another sprint will start as well. You're just doing everything in bits. So it's not like the traditional waterfall thing step by step. We're going to do the of FRD, do the design, and then after development is done, you will now start testing. So you have a whole lot of work to do. For me, I prefer agile because I know that I'm doing everything in bits. I don't have to wait for the whole full application to be done for me to start testing. So for agile, you're doing everything in bits while they're working on a particular feature. You started testing, and then developer is working on the next feature. And while I'm sending out feedbacks to you, the other one is ready for me. And for me, I just feel it makes work easier and faster that way. But the downside to it for me is that there always changes. Product owner will come and tell me that this thing, let us change it and all of that. But for me, still, I still feel agile is the faster. In my own opinion, I feel when you're doing waterfall, you're having to do everything all at once. I mean, I don't know, whatever works for everyone, but agile works for me, and it's what most of the companies have worked with. They go with the agile workflow, and it works for us, and that's it. So just like it says there, it's good for like big projects where you know that okay, after the development, then you're now finding a tester that will test it for you, and then you now push to prod. Agile is bit by bit. While we're working on this feature, the next feature is running, and then the next feature while you're testing, you're giving back feedbacks, and then this. But this one, you can easily make changes on agile. Waterfall, you cannot just wake up and say you want to make changes. Everybody ensures the document is ready. What is on the document is what is being worked on. But this one, they might just come and tell you that we're going to change something and stuff like that. So that's a bit in the course of everything, you you get to understand better while you work on it. You don't really have to know everything today, but while you get to work on real life projects, excuse me, when you get to work on real life projects, you get to understand. But like I said, I have always worked more with agile. Agile. Okay, so okay, Anton. So this I'm going to give this is this Anton e-commerce website testing. It's just going to be like a mini walkthrough on how to test the website, or but I'm not exactly going to show you. I'm just going to give you a rundown. So just like we have here for an e-commerce website, like an example, we have the unit tests, integration test, and the system test. So e-commerce website, let's say Jumia. So you're testing for unit tests, we're testing individual functions like adding an item to cart or calculating the total price. There was a particular application I tested last month. Something really funny because there are just some bugs you will see and you just be thinking these things are coming from the pit of hell. But no, just have to take your time to understand, because tell me why I am adding discounts as a cashier. I'm adding discount to a particular product and everything goes well. I close, and then when I click back, I'm not seeing the discount I added, but then it is recorded in database that there was a discount. It was just very, I don't know, but it was just a very messed up test. And even the developer was still shocked, like, what's all of this? And we had to like settle down and understand where the issue is coming from. So there are just some issues that you would see that there was even a particular still the same application I worked on with a different tester, where on our device should be seeing a different issue, and the issue she's experiencing, I'm not experiencing it. And on my own device, I'm seeing a different issue and she's not experiencing it. And then a new build will be released and I'm seeing a totally different issue that was already resolved. At the end of the day, you need patience as a software tester. But I'm going to use Jumia for this example. So you want to test the individual functions like adding an item to cart. You want to see that, okay, when I click a particular item and I'm clicking add to cart, it actually adds to cart. And when I add multiple items, when I'm adding multiple items, it calculates the amounts accurately. I should not be adding 10 items. I don't know what that sound is, but I'm hoping it's not the class. It's not Google Meet trying to kick us out of this class. Please, can someone confirm?
I can hear you.
Okay.
It was a comment. Someone wrote something in the
Oh,
message,
okay.
so it gave the notification.
Okay, thank you. I'll check the comments later. Thank you. Okay, so I want to ensure that when I'm adding up amounts, when I'm increasing the quantity of the item, the actual price increases as well and it's accurate. And also when you're integration test the interaction between the shopping cart, the payment gateway, and the inventory system. So I want to be sure that when it links me up to the payment gateway, the amount displayed is the actual amount that the customer is supposed to pay. I should not be seeing at the end of my total, I should not be seeing 10,000 naira, and then when it takes us to payment gateway, I'm seeing 1,000 naira or 100,000 naira. That's a glitch. That's a problem. And I'm just giving a rough scenario that you can use to test an e-commerce website. There are lots. And also test the entire checkout process, including user registration, product search, and other placements. Sometimes I remember testing one application recently, and there was the search bar, but you needed to type out the full name of the product before it displays the item on the list here. But when we had the UAT, stakeholder said no. When I type in the first letter, it should just bring out the item name. So it's basically what business wants. It wasn't stated in FRD, so that was why it wasn't exactly really checked. But when business pointed it out that this is what we want, we had to go back to work on it. So you have to always check the business requirements and then work with that, and also work with the design team and your developer to ensure that you get what is required. Else you have to go back, and it doesn't make sense. You not tell me business wants this and you're doing what you feel is right and not what they want. It's wrong. So system test, you're testing the entire checkout process. You're sure that you're able to check out when you're doing your registration, you're able to properly register. When you're searching for products, when you're trying to place order, you're able to do all of that. So for my notes here, So for my notes here, unit tests on an e-commerce website ensure that individual functions such as adding items to the cart, calculating the total price work independently and correctly. After the unit test, integration tests are carried out to assess the interaction between different systems such as the shopping cart, payment gateway, and inventory system. Lastly, system test validates the end-to-end process, including user registration and other placement. So that's like an overall view on e-commerce website. There's a lot you can test on an e-commerce website. On Jumia particularly alone, there are a lot of things you can test. You want to check, can I log in successfully? Hope it's not taking me to a different user account. Can I log in with a wrong password? When I try to do forgot password, do I get the link? There are times where this link or code that they send to you, does it have an expiration time? If business says that code should expire, the FRD says that code should expire in 5 minutes, am I able to use it after 24 hours or after 6 minutes? I've seen situations like that where I'm able to use those codes. We use them over and over again, and there are issues, there are bugs. So stuff like that you need to check. I'm using the simple small scenario, so you just have like a proper feel of it. But there's always more to testing when it comes to stuff like this. So now I think we've come to the end of our class. Talked about the essence of software testing, SDLC, software quality, and right methodology that matters. But I'll be taking questions now. Let me see the chat to see if I missed anything. Okay. So your leadership will test you when you're testing. They will test you, and then there's also the part where you have to copy developers. So when you're testing, because like I said, there are times where I'll be seeing issues, and the developer is telling me I'm not seeing it, and you now have to calmly break it down to them because you need patience. If you have anger issues, I don't think you should be a tester. Go and work on your anger issues before you come and start trying to be a tester. Because some of my developers are angry and they're pertinent. Please just help me fix the issue. Because tomorrow in our business will not say which developer. They'll say who tested. If anything flops, everybody would always look for the tester. But if everything goes well, everybody always praises the developer. Don't forget that there was one battle where we were fighting. So yeah, work on your anger issues. I think I should have started with that. Work on your anger issues before you become a tester, because you and your developer, I'm not going to say you fight, but there'll just be a lot of back and forth, and you just need to understand the person you're working with and know what works best for you guys. I have a particular developer that I know he has anger issues, but right now he's my best friend. So whenever there's an issue, he doesn't like to see my documents. I think you're going to see how to report bugs and stuff in the course of the class. He doesn't like to see my documents, but I just like to have them for, I don't know, just for the future, just so it shows that I documented everything. But once I do it, by getting on a call and I'm replicating the bugs for him, because as he's reading it, he's getting irritated. What is this? What is this? But when I am showing it to him and I'm talking to him, he's a lot calmer and he's like, okay, I'm not just making things up. He's actually seeing them and he's going to try to replicate and also work on it. So yeah, before I even ask people for questions, Gloria, please ask all the questions you want to ask me now before I ask every other person. This is Gloria on this call. Gloria and Olivia.
I'm here. This is Olivia.
Okay, please. Is there anything you don't understand?
So I can see that you're reading my comments. So I'm really just going to trust the process. I'm really just going to trust the process. But then again, like I'm trying to, what is this SDLC? Software development. What's the L and the C?
Life cycle.
Okay, life cycle.
Software development life cycle. So what happens in the process of developing a software, basically?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But trust me, you're going to enjoy software testing. It's like I said, you don't have anger issues. You're definitely going to enjoy it. And you don't really have to learn everything in one day, but you will enjoy it.
Yeah. I just had a little problem, like when the API thing was explained with all the whole like industry terms and all of that. I didn't really get it. So I'm probably going to go on YouTube later and be typing API for dummies so that they can use the simplest terms so that I can understand it.
Okay, no problem. No problem. You can. I'm trying to even see. Hmm. You can actually check online for simpler terms. But when I was learning API, this was what Google told me. You're a guest, and there's the chef in the kitchen, and the API is the waiter. So the API takes your order from you and takes it to the chef in the kitchen, and then gets your food. So it's like a middleman. I don't know if that makes any sense. But when I was learning, that was like
Yeah,
what
it makes
I
sense.
used to understand. And then the funny thing is, I did not even understand API until I started working with it. So when you start working with it, you now properly understand, oh, this is the gibberish that these people are saying the other time. But
Yeah.
trust me, you don't really have to know everything today. But I'm very sure I've seen the curriculum by the end of this class. Even if you don't know automation, you can still get a job as a manual tester. Trust me. If you put in the work, you can.
Okay.
So yeah,
Thank you.
software testing is fun. You're welcome. I think someone's hand was up before. Please, you can ask your questions. Adoye, please.
Yes. Yes. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity. I want to say I enjoyed your class, but I got a term. You said something
Thank you.
FRD says the code should expire. What is the full meaning? If the FRD, I think it's an acronym. What's the full meaning of the FRD you mentioned? Your phrase has
Okay,
FRD says the code should expire. What is FRD?
so it's like a product requirement when it comes to it's like a documentation that has what is required for that software or application. So like if you notice during when I was talking, I was saying something about um business and documentation. So it's like a requirement document that the business provides for the developer and the design team, basically for the team. So that's when I said the project gathering time, there's always that FRD that says, okay, this is how I want this application to work. Don't go and overdo it. This is what I want. So that is just like a manual or a guideline for everybody in the team to work with. So I'm now picking from the FRD to to test, and that's from the FRD to the developers are able to develop, and the design team is able to design. So did you understand that?
Yes, as in the comment, somebody wrote SRD, software requirement document. But is it the FRD, SRD is what is the is it? I know it's an acronym. What it is doesn't
Oh,
have a full
okay.
meaning.
Yes, it is functional requirement documents. Let me just type it in.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Yeah. But as a software tester, there's another document that you come up with test plans. Well, I'm sure the next person that will talk about test cases, bug reporting, and test plans, they'll break that down for you. So trust me, there's a whole lot to learn, but it's a very fun part. But this is the first thing you need before you even come up with your test plans. You need to know this. It's for you to have like a full understanding of what you are working on. Like I said with the example I used for the banking app, that okay, maybe I want business wants me to build an application that can only send money but not be able to save beneficiary. It might sound weird to you, but that is what is on the FRD. That's what they want. So you're not going to do and overdo and say, no, I want you to also do benefit. You have to follow what is on the document and then work with that. Script plan your test cases in that way, your test plans and everything, and work with that way. So yeah, exactly. Daniel, thanks for that. You don't really need to know. Like I said, you don't need coding to start off as a manual tester. And there are so many automation testers out there that don't really do it because they they always do manual tests more. So you don't really need to know. Like I said, once you have the full background knowledge on manual testing, getting into automation tests would not be difficult at all. You might have blockers, obviously, but it won't be because you already have like a full understanding. So, any other question?
Okay, I have a question.
Okay, shoot.
Sorry, it's not it's I don't know. It's like asking a question to be sure I understand what it is. So, is agile and
Okay.
waterfall, are both of them project management methodologies?
I didn't get that. Agile and waterfall, are they? I don't
Are
use
they
my
project
network.
management methodologies? I guess they are methods
Yes, in a way, yes.
used.
Yes,
Okay,
exactly. Yes. Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome. Any other question?
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Hi, good evening.
Hi, I can
Please,
hear
I have a
you.
question.
Good evening. Okay, feel free.
So my question goes this way. Do you have any advice for someone who is already a developer but who is now venturing into the software testing? And since I noticed you said you worked with lots of developers, so what kind of pointers, like what you said correctly, applies to me very well because most time we are always angry whenever we get to work with testers and bringing up issues that are not working. It's very frustrating, very very frustrating, and I've never been a fan of testers because I consider them like my enemies. So now, going into this concept, do you have any advice you can give to developers that are now venturing into this area they've never liked before? Thank you.
Okay. Okay, I have two things to say. First, I would say test your products. Test your products before you send it out to testers. But have it in mind that because it is you that tested, it doesn't mean um it doesn't mean you will not find testers will not come up with bugs. But I'm saying test because it reduces the stress on the testers. And two, I think patience. I think you should find what works for you and your testers, and also be patient. Just have it at the back of your head that because I know that it can be really painful that you develop something and somebody's going to tell you it's not working when it's working on your own end. It can be very painful, but I think at the end of the day, patience is what works, and just be open to listening. Like I said with the developer I worked with, we noticed that him reading through my document did not help him. We had to always just get on a call. And that's not what I do with every other developer, but for him, that's what works. And when we started off, everybody in company knows that this guy has anger issues. Other testers avoid him. But somehow he became my best friend, at least one of my best developers, because we had to find what worked for us. So I think in the end, testers are not your enemies, but just find what works for you guys. If it means you getting on a call for you to properly understand what is happening, then you can do that. And I'm really that there are times where something will fail on my end once until we push the prod, it doesn't fail again. It doesn't mean I was lying. I don't know what happened. I just kind of replicated. So I think patience and always testing, but having at the back of your mind that this thing can fail at any point. Maybe when I push to staging or to test environment, it might fail. So patience and just having an open mind with your people. And another thing I would say, because I have a little brother that is a developer, he's always scared when he brings his applications for me to test because he knows I'll always find something. Doesn't mean he has not tested, but I try to tell him not to work with what he has tested and push to prod. Send it out to people to check as well, because it is your thing. So you're not going to rigorously test as much or as well as some other person would test or a tester would test. So because it is my thing, obviously I'm going to pamper it so it doesn't break. Well, it's me that did not build it, obviously I'm going to do it anyhow and try to break it to see if it actually breaks. So at the end of the day, still be patient. As much as you're also learning software testing, I would say test, but when it comes to your own thing, still push it out there for others to test as well. So you can take quality or send quality out to your stakeholders or your users. Well, thank you, Adjoye. Hope I was able to give you some more advice.
Yes, thank you very
Any
much. I really
other
appreciate it.
question? Okay, you're welcome. Any other question? Okay, Victor. Maybe I should stop sharing my screen so I can see people's hands are raised. Okay, Victor, you can go. You can
Then,
Hi, Victor.
good evening. Nice session, and thanks for impacting us. So, my question, I want to know what are the biggest challenges like a testing team faces during testing. What are the biggest challenges, and how do you overcome these challenges?
There are lots of challenges. So there are a lot of challenges. Because there's the part of the devices where you tell me to test an Android application and you're not giving me an Android phone to test or a tablet to test with and stuff. Well, I would give you like a little breakdown or sometimes it's time. Testers don't get enough time to test. And if you remember during the beginning of this class, I had asked if you heard about Zap and how long it took them to test. My tester friends were sending that tweet to me because we know what we see. You will tell me, I've seen a project manager tell me, is it not to test? There was one time I got a job and the very first day of the job, they told me, okay, just send it to her. We'll get back, we can circle back in an hour or two and then she should come up with the bugs. And I was so lost on the call, like what's going on here? When I had shared the story with my friends, they had told me to quit the job because that was a toxic environment. And yes, they did not lie. So we don't have enough time. They just feel is it not to test, is it not to open one or two applications, touch this, touch that, and see if it's working. But there's more to testing than that. People think that's just how it is, but there's a lot more to testing. I could be focused on just the login feature for a whole day. You look at it, it's not the email and password field alone, but there's a lot more to it than that. I'm sure when you get right into it, you understand that it is not just about pressing buttons here and there. So because people don't understand that in depth about testing, they don't give us enough time to test. You will give the developers 1 month and you're telling me to test the whole thing you gave a developer 1 month to do, telling me to do it in 1 or 2 days. How are you reasoning? And then if something fails, you're going to come and tell me that it's a tester. And then, like I had said about devices, too, there's limited resources. They don't give us resources. I remember one time where I was testing and I had to download Android Studio. I had to use I couldn't get a physical device, and because I could not get a physical device, I had to use a simulator. And you cannot really getting that feel or that experience that you're supposed to get on an actual physical device, you cannot replicate or you cannot get that on a simulator. And if something breaks, they will always call testers. And you're telling me to test, but you don't want to bring out money to give me a proper device to test with. So there's also that there are a lot of challenges. There's the parts where you're telling me, like I said about agile and waterfall, you're coming to tell me that We don't want the login button to be in the left-hand side. We want it to be on the upper left corner. And as simple as it looks like moving that login button to the upper left corner, you would think it's just moving that button there. But trust me, you'll be shocked that by the time you click on that login, it is taking you to password reset, or it's taking you to you successfully uploaded your image. Something is going to break, something might break. So when they keep going back and forth, changing things on a particular application, and it looks like, oh, they just changed it, something has broken. So sometimes, with as little as changing that small login button, we now have to do a full regression test where you're testing the things that were not touched, or you're just testing to ensure that the other thing they touched did not mess up with the things that they did not touch. So you have to now do a full regression test to be sure that nothing broke. And funny thing is, where I presently work, when they push to test environment and we test, the amount of tests I do on test environments is what I do when we deploy to staging, because it's as simple as everything working on test environments, and they're just moving everything that is on test environment to staging. Trust me, I will still find small bugs on staging. They didn't touch anything. All they did was deploy from test environment to staging, right? But things are breaking. But you're not giving me enough time to test too. You're just saying not to test. So all these things people don't understand, and we've tried to explain to them, but they don't understand. And also, there's a communication aspect too, where the usual fights between well, thank you, Oyi. There's a usual fight between the developers and testers. But me, I would always say that people always say developers and testers are enemies. But for me, I don't like that. So I've tried to ensure that my developers and I are friends. So I try to have like a rapport with them. So when I go to them, they'll say, "Ah, you've come again," and I'll just stay and wind them on the call. They are my friends. When the other guy was stressing me, I have to call him out. This product, it is not my daddy's product, it's not your father's product. They're paying us for this thing. All we're trying to do is push quality out. So we need to work together to ensure this thing goes out well. And when he saw it from my point of view, apparently he said he didn't know that the way he was communicating, that he knows people have complained, but he didn't think that got at me. And I spoke to him, and since then, we had to find we found what worked for us, and we've been very cool since then. So there's a communication aspect, but don't start software testing with the mindset that developers and testers are enemies. We're not enemies. We're trying to get quality out. So I don't know how you want to push quality out when the person that's supposed to fix your bug is your enemy. So you have to try to be friends with them. They might not come with you with that energy, but try to put that picture out there that I'm not fighting you. Let's work together to get this thing out fast. What else can I say again? I think so far there are a lot of challenges, but from those ones are basically. But yeah, any other question? Do we have any other question?
Hello, good evening.
Okay.
I have a question.
Hi. Okay.
Yes, thank you for the class. God bless you. Um,
Thank you.
okay. Uh, for the software testing, I tried to do little software testing, review websites, review apps for friends or people, for programmers, because I have a lot of guys who do programming and all that. And
Yeah.
I go very detailed in giving them a list of things that needs to be taken care of on the website, on the apps. I can show the apps on my phone, check it. The way people also do what they call app things that I give corrections for back end and front end. I give them a write up. And some of my friends who are into project management, I also help them to what they call it, give a write up detail, speech write up for correcting each app's website, programs, and everything. But my question is, how do we deal with, or how can one be able, as we go along into software testing, how do we get to a point where you can deal with the pressure of your bosses or people who employ you for a particular project, whereas
Was it the network that interrupted him? I can't hear him again. Oh. Am I the only one that can't hear him? I think he has dropped. Has he dropped off?
I think his network has dropped him off.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to answer that question without him on the call. Should I answer the question without him? Or Sheon, can you ask your question while I wait for him to join back?
Okay. Yeah, good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Yeah, please. I just want to understand. You spoke about just briefly about automated testing. I
Okay.
happen to work in organizations where probably CTO is always complaining that complaining to the QAs that they should go and learn automated testing. And but most of the time they are always used to manual testing, which to some extent I don't understand. Like you said, most times the developers are given timelines, but QA's timeline is always maybe 2 units or 3 units for them to resolve, for them to resolve, for them to test the features. But QAs are given a shorter time. So does the automated testing help to resolve that? And what's actually the like a brief? I know there should actually be a topic of that, but just what's the time the difference between the manual testing and the automated testing?
Okay. Hmm. Okay, I think I'd explain this, but I would go over it again. But if you want to ask me, in my own opinion, I would pick manual tests over automation. Not like automation is so important. It is, but like I had explained before, there are some issues that you might miss out when you're doing your automation test that you obviously pick up during manual tests, like the usual functional test and the UI and all of that. But yeah, when it comes to automation is faster because you're basically writing scripts and you're sending it for the tool to run the test and checks for you. I don't know if you understand that. So you're checking that it's faster and it covers more. So some particular parts that you might miss because you're human, the system would not miss that part or those particular tools or features. You will miss it basically. So it is faster. So because it is faster, and also there's also load testing. So let's say what's the instance I can use? Let's say we have Twitter. We want to test Twitter. We want to check if we can take in maybe 1 million users at the same time. I can't do that as a manual tester. I can't log in with 1 million subscribers or 1 million accounts in 1 second. So that is how you can easily do that using automation test and also basically. But majority of times, I would always opt for manual test before automation test. So automation is important, but for me, just manually check before you then run automation, like a regression test. You can use automation on whole board. It just depends on what the company wants and then see what you can give them. Hope I was able to answer your question. And I think Giddy is back.
hello.
Hi,
I'm sorry for the break
no
transmission.
problem.
So, so my question is, how would you be able to deal with the pressure? Because you mentioned earlier that sometimes software testers don't end up finishing their job or finishing the software they are testing over whatever project is given. So how would you be able to one can you be able to solve the issues? Are you hearing me properly?
Yeah, sure.
How can we be able to solve the issues? Knowing fully well that some of the clients or the bosses we work with might not want a correction to be done always. For instance, like you said earlier, we design a website to remove login details to the right or something like that, and they intend to move it to the other side. But we knowing fully well that you're following standard rule, standard regulation, knowing that certain things have to be put in one direction or the other. So how do we get to be able to communicate with them, convincing them, and how can we also set boundaries and set standards, knowing fully well that as software testers, we will not also bridge the gap or go against, the entire number to ask, right?
Okay, if I got your question correctly, you're asking about timeline, right? How to communicate that to your project manager,
Yes,
stakeholder.
yes, and
Okay.
uh, not to convince them that certain things will has to be left the way it is, not spoiling another.
Okay. Okay. It boils down to communication. It boils down to communication, how you're able to communicate with them. It boils down to communication. You need to explain it to them. And the part about letting things be the way they should be, it would be better if it's not just you letting them know. There's also a developer there also, but it's all about how you communicate it to them. For me, I feel these people sometimes can be like babies, and if you're able to talk them rightly, they would budge, they would do what you want them to do. So it's this whole thing you just said, it boils down to communication. You can talk to them and tell them, I cannot do this thing in 2 days, I can't do it in 2 weeks. You want quality out there. And for me to be able to properly test and ensure that there are no issues, then you need to give me enough time. And if you're not giving me enough time, whatever you see, you take. But we're not going to throw it out at them like that. But you have to be able to convince them by communicating properly. Something funny happened 2 weeks ago at work. We've been testing a particular application for not testing basically, but the whole development phase since last year, May. We were already tired. Me, I was fed up with the application. I wanted to let it go. We were done. We had even prepared production build. And next thing, product owner said he wants to go and show it to stakeholders. Somehow he just said we should be there. We're not supposed to be there, but we went. And I was just so pissed the whole time in that meeting. Why? Because I was hearing something like, I don't like the way the color theme is. Let us change it. I'm hearing, why can't users upload image? And they had had all these conversations before development began, but apparently stakeholders were not carried along. And so they were just there pointing out their stuff. I was so pissed, but obviously I would not show it. I was all calm, we're all calm. We're angry because we had dropped the application. We're done. We already had a production build. But then they now started talking, and these people, they don't know anything about software. They don't know anything about Hello World. They don't know anything. They just feel it's enough to do two and two. They don't understand that after developer builds, we still have to test. So they just kept coming and why is this thing here? Why is this not there? Why is that there? And so we had to come to a compromise. We had a conversation with them like, okay, this is what we can do. We're not ruling everything out. This one, we cannot do it now. We'll just push it to version 2 when we want to build like an upgrade version. We'll consider putting it there for you. So you can always come up with that option. Maybe we can't do it yet because due to time constraints and all, we can just push it for like the second version of this that comes. We can include it there. And I'm sure all these time constraints conversation comes in the middle of development or towards the end, because that's when they will now be telling you that they saw one of their friends' application that has one funny button and they want you to do the same thing. So if you're able to communicate properly with them, you can. Because the way those guys were talking that day during the meeting was as if that was what they wanted. But we found a way to properly communicate. There was no fight. We just broke it down to them like, okay, this is what we should do and this is what we can do during the next session. Another mistake we always make is you don't want to seem incompetent. So we testers always try to say, we can get it done in 1 week. You're going to work yourself out, and next time they're going to come up with something to and come and tell you get it done in 1 week. Maybe you did that one in 1 week. But if you can do it in 1 week, sure. But if you know it's going to be like stressful and a burden to you, then give them a good time frame from the onset. Because once you spoil these people once, they want to keep up with that pattern. So try to let them know that, okay, and before you even start giving time frames, please read your FRD. Please go through your Figma design and understand what you're going to be working on, because some applications will look very simple, though. And when you're going through the FRD, you're seeing that, anyways. But yeah, like I said, communicate properly with them, and I'm sure they'll be able to see reasons with you. And don't spoil them from the onset. Let them know that you, as a tester, you need enough time outside the development time. It depends on the method you guys are using, but there should always be enough time for you as a tester to test, and let them know that it's not just about testing. You're still going to go back to the developers with your bugs. You're still going to have to retest the bugs they fixed and still do an overall full end-to-end test, regression test on that application. So that is why you need enough time. So you must let them understand. I'm very sure when they are not the devil, don't let them understand seriousness with you and give you time. So yeah, that's it. I hope I was able to answer your question. Oh, I'm trying. I'm writing small code travel. My brother is a developer too. So yeah. Oh yeah, I can share the slides. I can share the slides. I think I'll share it.